Welcome.
Hey Jane, hi everybody.
Hi, Jamie.
We give people a chance to arrive.
Jane, I don't know if others had this issue, but from the link that you sent out this morning, like 7:35 my time, join the session, it goes into a doom loop, so it never actually opens up the meeting.
Oh,
But I did it on my phone and it worked. That's why I'm on my phone.
that's
It's
weird.
me on my computer.
I just clicked on the link in the email and it worked
Oh,
perfectly.
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe it's just mine.
Well, if you want to go out and come back in again, Pamela, you know, we've always got a couple of housekeeping things at the beginning to do anyhow.
Okay, yeah, maybe I will. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Welcome. As I said, we're giving others a chance to arrive. I'm really glad to see all of you. Thank you for making time to be with me in the second part of this series. And any questions or comments before we begin? See if Pamela gets back in.
Thank
I
you for
just
doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I
Tracy?
just I just got back from Dollar Tree. They have Bob Ross socks where his hair is three-dimensional. And they have Let's Get Crazy. They have the gray, just happy little accidents. They have happy clouds. And then in the automotive section, they have dangles that are air fresheners that say it's your world, and they're happy citrus flavor, and they would be great gift tags. And I found Bob Ross men's boxer briefs. Now, they don't fit me, they're too small, but they have a lovely fabric that says, this is your world. And I'm going to cut up the fabric and wrap up a rock and do that thing called an emo and an UMO, an unidentified um, um, meaningful object. I found that on YouTube.
Okay.
So that's my little commercial for Dollar Tree. There you go.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for you doing this, Jane. It's really wonderful for me to be able to be part of the group. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad you're here, Candy. It's good to see you. And thanks for that acknowledgement. This is important to me too. Okay, I noticed, first of all, let's talk about the housekeeping stuff. If you could mute yourselves while I'm talking, that would be great. And then we'll have time for questions and comments at the end. And if there is someone here who wasn't at the last one or doesn't work with me regularly, here's what you need to know about Zoom. I record in the gallery view. You have several options. You can set your own option, and that would mean, for example, you could choose speaker view. And last week, Zena was part of the discussion. She'll be here today. I think she was running a little bit late. Today, I'm the one doing most of the talking, and you can look at me in speaker view if you want to get the full picture. But I record in gallery, and that means I can see, I never can do the math, 25 people on my screen right now, and one of them might be you. And if it is you, then it would be important that if you're doing anything, you either turn off your video. Hang on a second, I need to turn off my mail. There we go. You want to turn off your video if you're getting up and moving around or you're doing anything that might be distracting to someone else on the camera or someone who's watching the video. So please be mindful of that. And please make sure you've got your clothes on because I've had that issue in the past too. And that's a personal choice. That's a personal choice, but this is not an X-rated presentation. So either turn off your video or put your clothes back on, okay? Um, there is a feature called raise hand, and it's down in the reactions or up in the reactions based on your device. And when we get to the point of making comments, I prefer that you use the raise hand feature because it helps keep everything in order. I think of it, if you're familiar with the Native American concept of the talking stick, where a sacred stick is actually passed from person to person when it's their turn to comment. And I see the raise hand feature in that way. It helps keep it all organized so that I can get to everybody. But as is always true, in my world at least, there is another choice, and I call that the blurt feature. And the blurt feature means that you can unmute when we get to the comment section. And if you can't find the raise hand, I still would like to hear from you. And that would mean that you can just unmute and say, I'd like to speak, or put it in the chat, because several people are really, really good, and Pamela Cole is one of them, at watching the chat, which I can't do while I'm in the middle of talking. I can't even chew gum and ride a bike at the same time. So if you put in chat that you'd like to say something, somebody else will pick up on it and they will let me know in order to help you out. So you can see that you can see that part of what we do here is about working in community and helping each other, so that anybody who wants to make a comment can make a pardon me, can make a comment. Okie doke. Now, someone else asked, and I didn't catch it in the chat. Could you summarize what happened last time? And the video for that presentation is available, and you can watch that. And I'm not quite sure where it is. And Zena, as I said, was running a little bit late. Let me see if she's here. I guess I could ask. Are you? She's not. Yes.
I'm here.
Here. Okay, great. Where would they watch the video if they wanted to watch the one from last week?
I sent out an email with the recording link. And if you didn't get it, or maybe you hadn't RSVP'd beforehand, email me, Zena@JaneDunnewold.com, and I'll send it out. Actually, it's on YouTube now also.
Oh, great. Okay, good.
But if you're having trouble finding it, email me and I'll get you a link.
Okay, thanks. That's
I
helpful.
think it'll eventually be on your website too. I just haven't gotten that uploaded
Yeah.
yet.
Well, you got a lot going on, let's face it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Okay, just the brief synopsis. Last time I talked about the divine feminine and the fact that we're androgynous beings, and that means that every human being has both qualities that we would identify as feminine and qualities that we identify as masculine. And that when we're in balance, we welcome all of those qualities because that's what makes us whole. And so the underlying theme of this entire three-part series is what we can do to become more whole by claiming the various parts of ourselves. And we'll finish that up next week by talking about what it means to be in community and how to look for community, because it's so important. It's important all the time, but it's particularly important. And it means that we have room in this discourse for all sides. And anyone who saw the email that Zen and I sent out a week or 10 days ago knows that while some of what's happening right now is horrifying personally to us, we still try to do the best we can to make everyone feel welcome in our community. And also, we expect respect, compassion, and kindness shown toward each other when we're in these conversations. So I want to underscore that today. Now, specifically today, I'm going to talk about the heroine's journey. And this is a concept that rose up out of Joseph Campbell, who was an amazing philosopher and student of myth and archetypes. And because of the era during which Joseph Campbell worked, which frankly might not be too different now, the hero's journey was more important than the heroine's journey. But in reality, as human beings and as women, and women are primarily my audience, we have our own journey that we take over the course of our lives. And in order to illustrate that, I'm going to share a story with you first. And so I'm going to open, and everybody's muted. Thank you for that. I'm going to share with you this book from 1991, The Mapmaker's Daughter, by M.C. Helldorfer, illustrated by Jonathan Hunt. And as I am sharing the story with you, we've translated the images. I did with Wayne was the one who helped me. As I'm telling you the story, the text will be on the pages because I couldn't separate it from the illustrations. But you don't have to read the text. All you have to do is listen to my voice and then use your eyes to study these amazing illustrations. Jonathan Hunt made these illustrations, or I should say, created the illustrations in a combination of ink drawing and watercolor. And they've always captivated me. This was one of our favorite stories when Zena was growing up. And I think when this book came out in 91, I think she was 7. Maybe I've got the math wrong. Anyhow, we were still reading kids' books, but this is a book that's far, far more than a child's book. So let's begin. Oh my, I'm going to need to back out a minute. I just realized I need to diminish the screen so that I can see the words. Okay, now we're good. In the days when wild and lonely places lay between kingdoms and roads were as twisted as a witch's curse, there lived a man who made excellent maps. He had one daughter, Suchin, who from the time her mother died, worked side by side with her father. Day and night, explorers came to Suchin's cottage to buy maps and tell tales. Often they talked of a place called Turnings, but few dared to go there anymore, and fewer still came back. Some said that a witch encircled the land with a powerful spell. Suchin was filled with wonder at these tales, and she longed for her own adventure. "Oh, Papa," she would say, "let me go. I'll break the witch's spell and chart a new way to Turnings." But always the old man answered, "If you love me, child, you will stay here." One evening, after the mapmaker had fallen asleep, there came a soft knock at the cottage door, and in rushed a man, cloaked like night. "Your Highness," Suchin exclaimed. "You must help me," the prince whispered. "My father wishes me safe at court, but I can sit quiet no longer." He pressed a coin into Suchin's hand. "I pay for a map to Turnings, and your trouble too, should my father's guards come looking for me." Suchin fetched the map, for in the prince's eyes she saw her own longing. At dawn, guards hammered on the mapmaker's door, and the king strode in. "Arrest them both," he ordered. "My best knights are lost in Turnings, and my only son gone on some fool's quest. I know you helped him slip away. You will pay for his life with yours." At that, Suchin pleaded, "Let me go and search for your son." Her father cried. The king laughed bitterly. But Suchin asked again, and since no one else was willing to go, the king granted her wish. She hugged her father goodbye, and he gave her 3 gifts: her mother's white cape, a map of the way to Turnings, and a lock of his silver hair. In the first days of adventure, the girl sang to see the paths she had once painted. But as the land grew strange, she became lonely. Sometimes she was afraid. Still, she did not stop until she reached a great river at the edge of Turnings. A boatman waited there. "Run dry of explorers?" he asked. "All out of brave knights, sending princes and ladies these days?" The man shook his head. "The Witch of Turnings will have room for you." Now Suchin, hearing the word prince, hurried on board, but at once the boat began to sink. Too heavy, the boatman shouted, pushing the girl back on shore. Mercy, lady, you carry too much. I have little, she argued, but he would not let her board again. Then Suchin removed her mother's cape. Throw it in the water, the man ordered. The girl tossed the silk. From her hand it leaped, flashed a tail, and swam away. Suchin stared in wonder, as did the boatman. Carrying little, he grumbled, as he poled their way across the river. Little more than a great fish. Beyond the river, stone mountains rose before Suchin. She climbed high and higher still, till she could climb no more. A voice called down to her, Run drive, explorers, all out of brave knights, sending princes and ladies these days? Come, ride my goat. The Witch of Turnings will have a cage for you. And Suchin, hearing the word prince, eagerly climbed on the goat. All at once the animal sank beneath her. Too heavy, the goat woman cried, pushing her off. Mercy, lady, you carry too much. I have little, Suchin argued, drawing out her father's map. Rip it apart, the woman ordered. Suchin tore the map in half. Out of her hands it flew. 2 large winged birds. Carrying little, the goat woman mumbled, poking Suchin. 2 birds bigger than my goats and I. They wound their way through the mountains, and then Suchin alighted and traveled on alone. At last, she came to the witch's castle. Every gate was watched. No one comes out, no one goes in unseen, she said. Unless they travel with me, a man replied. Run drive, brave knights, sending ladies to the rescue now? The man laughed and set a covered basket at Suchin's feet. She climbed in quickly and he lifted her up. But oh, how he staggered. Lady, mercy, he cried. You're carrying too much. But I have little, Suchin said, reaching into her pocket. Surely she could keep her father's lock of hair. The man snatched it and threw it to the ground, and it sprang back with a hiss and slid away. Carrying little, the man grunted, a little more than a giant snake. In darkness and silence, Suchin was carried to the heart of the castle. Everywhere she looked, in alcoves and up the stairways, along the balconies, hanging from the great hall's ceiling, were glittering cages filled with knights and explorers and creatures as strange as dreams. Suddenly, the man dropped the basket, and out Suchin tumbled. Before her stood the prince, hands and waist bound in gold. Oh, how nice, the witch murmured. I like humans in twos. Suchin scrambled back. What, rushing home, dear? Well, if that's your wish, let me send you off with a little gift. She lay a gold belt in Suchin's hands. Wrap this around your waist 3 times, and your journey will soon be over. At Suchin's touch, the belt curled. She fought its power. She lashed out. The gold spooled around the witch's waist, tight and tighter. Then Suchin pulled the belt loose. How the witch reeled like a top. Whirling on pointed feet, she spun a giddy path, and spells began to come undone. Suchin and the prince ran out of the hall. From a well, a snake rose and slid like a rope beneath them, carrying them over the castle wall. Two birds swooped down and lifted them high above the mountains, setting them down on a riverbank. A fish curved its back above the water and carried them to the other side. The road home lay short and straight. For 7 days after, there was singing and dancing and the sharing of tales as knights and explorers came home from turnings. The king presented golden medals to the mapmaker and his daughter. The prince gave Suchin a fine horse and a red cape, which she wore on her next adventure. Now, we don't all have this sort of symbolic, I hope enjoyable for you to hear, kind of an adventure, not like Suchin's. But we do have our own, and in many ways it can be symbolic too. And that brings me to sharing with you the stages of the heroine's journey as it was outlined by Maureen Murdoch. She was a Jungian psychotherapist, and she worked with Joseph Campbell. And in 1990, she wrote a book called The Heroine's Journey, Woman's Quest for Wholeness. And she wrote it in response to the fact that Campbell's hero's journey was male-centric. So in this case, the stages focus on the heroine's struggle to find herself by first operating in a masculine world and then returning to embrace the feminine. And so you can see how this carries forward what we talked about last time we met together. Now, this was written in 1990, and I find it very interesting that the book that I just shared with you, The Mapmaker's Daughter, was written in 1991. So they're actually contemporaries of each other. And as I go through these stages, which I'm just going to very briefly describe so we have plenty of time to converse, you can decide for yourself what you can recognize and what sounds relevant. I would have thought before I started researching and doing all the reading that I've been doing that maybe this was an outdated way of thinking about the heroine's journey, but I don't think so. I think it's an archetypal journey and the stages are still relevant. The first is the separation from the feminine. Basically what that means, and for those of you who've studied archetypes and chakras with me, this is the stage at which we leave what we grew up with, what we can sometimes call the tribe, although I try to be careful in using that word. But the heroine, according to Murdoch, distances herself from traditional feminine values. And we're not talking about, well, maybe we are. I'll wait and hold that thought. Also, feminine roles, sometimes the mother figure, partly in order to be taken seriously in a patriarchal society. That's followed by identifying with the masculine, which we're all familiar with this idea that if we adopt certain kinds of traits and behaviors, we are more likely to succeed in a male-oriented world where external validation and success are so important. The road of trials represents obstacles and challenges to the goals, and perhaps struggling with inner conflict and proving worth by male standards. The illusory boon of success is the stage at which the initial goals are achieved, but sometimes the success feels hollow. And sometimes it also comes at great personal or spiritual sacrifice. Awakening to spiritual emptiness means, or another way to think about that, is that despite achievements, there's this sort of empty feeling inside, maybe an inner void. The learned strategies have failed and sometimes leads to a dark night of the soul. And classically, a dark night of the soul is a period of time when we withdraw into introspection and we explore our inner selves, and sometimes we confront the shadow. And by shadow, in the way that I mean it, I mean the part of ourselves that we haven't paid attention to, or that perhaps we haven't even been very aware of. We get a new realization or a new understanding. That's followed by yearning to reconnect with our feminine sides, the aspects that we have sometimes rejected, which can include creativity and intuition and empathy. And at this point, we have the opportunity, or the heroine has the opportunity, to reconcile with female lineage or role models and find strength in our roots. And I think this is particularly true for those of us who work with textiles. I know, at least for me, and really, I guess I can only speak for myself, I feel a very deep connection to my own relatives, my grandmother who crocheted and knit, my mother who sewed clothing. My grandmother also made quilts. And I think all of those, what we usually think of as female pastimes, also connect me to many, many more generations of women that came before. And so that's an example of that. And then back to this idea of the fact that we are all human beings who have every right to embrace both feminine and masculine as they've been defined traits in this particular culture. It's important to make peace with the masculine qualities in ourselves and to recognize that they're neutral and they're not necessarily toxic, and that we want to integrate positive aspects of both sides of ourselves back to that idea of wholeness, because that allows us to speak our truth and own our own authority. And the final step then is the integration of these two sides of ourselves. The heroine achieves a harmonious balance of integrated parts, returns to the world with a new understanding and self-acceptance and sense of personal authority. And so just a few thoughts, which we can either add into the discussion, or perhaps you can screenshot this if you'd like and carry this away to think about on your own. These are big questions. I don't expect instantaneous responses, but I do think it's valuable food for thought. And I do think these will perhaps inform any discussion that we have today. Can you identify stages in your own life that reflect your personal growth and journey? Can you think of times when you've been courageous? Can you identify strengths from your family of origin that you recognize in yourself? And then really one of the most important things I've been working on and thinking about, which is why I want to share it with you. How can you better value yourself so that you can do what you need to do to honor your creativity, because that's your birthright and it's self-care? And how can you honor your ability to do small things that make a difference in your own life or the life of others? Because let's face it, we're not all going to do huge, big, grand, capable things, but we can all do something. And that something can be toward creative progress in our own selves, but it can also be the kind of thing that we give back because we're in community with each other. So just a little bit to think about. And while you're thinking about this, I can't leave out some of the interesting symbolism from that book. And I want to share a little bit about that with you. And then this will resurface in creative strength training as we go along into the rest of the year. Think about those three symbols: the stork, the birds in the pictures in the books were storks. And storks are symbolic representations of protection and loyalty. And the snake also symbolizes protection and clear personal boundaries. And the map is a symbol of discovery and journeying, exploration, adventure, finding new paths, even getting lost and then finding yourself. And Suchen in German means seeker. And so just a couple others, the lock of hair symbolically represents commitment and loyalty. And so over the course of, and turnings, just one more. Turnings represents a place that is a threshold of significant transition, choice, or cyclical change. And so I love looking up these kinds of symbolic meanings because it makes the story so much richer. But it also relates back to our conversation about becoming whole. Because when you think about what happened over the course of the story, Suchen left home and she took with her these 3 gifts from her father. And that could represent what we grew up with and what we got from whatever circumstances we were in as children. And she cast them off in ways that were beneficial for her journey, but then they circled back around, didn't they? They came back again as she and the prince were escaping the chaos that was being left behind when the spells came undone. And so I take to heart the meaning of that, which is I have the strength of my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother in me, and my father and my grandfathers and my great-grandfathers, although I didn't know either of them for very long. And so when we talk about our own journeys, or we think about these questions that I've posed to you, I think what we're doing here is twofold. We're honoring where we came from and how it impacted, even if we had to push back. I didn't have a perfect relationship with my parents by any stretch of the imagination. But in retrospect, especially now that they're gone, I recognize how much I got from them that I didn't truly appreciate until I got to the age that I have become. And so I open the floor. Feel free to use the raise hand if you'd like to do that, or feel free to put something in the chat so somebody else knows that you'd like to speak and lets me know. Or and I prefer those 2 ways rather than the blurt. The blurt can get kind of crazy if we're not careful. And so we'll begin with the raised hands at this moment in time. Lindsay, please.
Hi, Jane. This was very valuable to me to see that today. Firstly, I appreciated that she didn't run off with the prince and get married.
Yeah, exactly.
And secondly, I've been watching the monks and also reading a lot about dopamine right now and thinking about how difficult it is to sit still and think. Maybe she was thinking clearly about her path and what she wanted to do. And I think it's really valuable for me to think that if I want to be the heroine in my story, I'm going to have to get uncomfortable. I'm going to have to sit with discomfort, sit with not knowing, sit with searching, and not always having an answer, and just going. And that's a little bit of what I got from her story. She just stayed with it. She didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but she kept on. And I feel like that's what I need to be doing, and not seeking that dopamine hit, but more sitting still with the discomfort.
Thank you, Lindsay. Carol, please.
What I noticed was she, in order to make the journey, she had to divest herself of the 3 protective talismans that her father had given her. So she confronted the queen all by herself without any other tools or accoutrements. And I think that's significant to this story. And in addition, the 3 talismans, the mundane physical things, were transformed by her willingness to go on the journey. And I just, so that as simple as this story seems, it really is all about transformation. And I agree with Lindsay. It did not end with, and they lived happily ever after. Gag me. So the other thing that I appreciate is the comments you made about Joseph Campbell, because we've had some conversations about him. He was a product of his time. And the work that he did within that time was monumental. So, and it's been transformative for me. So thanks. I think what I want to do when these 3 sessions are over is I want to binge watch them. Because I think they will be a really significant unit. And the heroine, like the hero, goes off on a journey into the unknown and then comes back with gifts for her people.
Exactly.
So that part is irrespective of gender. And I think that's really important. What are the parts of ourselves or human life that have nothing to do with gender? They are all about humanity. Okay, I'm done. I promise to be done.
Okay. Okay. Well, I saw a couple comments splash across the bottom, and I want to comment on that. To Jane, I appreciate the fact that the witch is not always an evil character, and that it has been a witch has that term, the word, unfortunately, that whole concept has been demonized, and I agree with you about that. But I tend to prefer look at the larger picture and think of this particular witch as the shadow, because when you study archetypes, you realize that every archetype has the light side, which I think of as the lesson, and the shadow side, which is the part that hasn't been revealed yet, and which sometimes can be harmful and negative. And so when when that witch was portrayed in the way that she was in this particular story, that was just one version, what I think of as the shadow of the witch. And that if we think about, for example, a very close relative witch would be the evil witch in The Wizard of Oz. And yet there was the good witch as well. And so I think that when we're considering these topics, it's really worth it to consider it on a slightly higher level where we can see that, as is true, I talked last week about the yin and the yang, that in general, life is made up of dualities. And I suppose it could have been a wizard in this particular story, but maybe that witch is actually symbolically the shadow side of how feminine energy can be used, because both can be disabused. And I think that duality is an important thing to keep in mind. Judy, please.
Hi, everybody. I was going to respond to something you said before people started talking, which was honoring where we came from and what we got from them. And the first thing that came to mind is sometimes where you come from, and when I think of that, I think of parental models. It's not always what they say or do, but what they don't say or they don't do. And sometimes the better life lesson comes from what they don't do or what they don't say, and to be open to that. So even if you had a really difficult relationship with your parents and you never felt that they got you or et cetera, sometimes it's what they didn't say, what they didn't do that helped you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
No, that's a really good point. Thanks, Judy. Thanks for bringing that up. That's the other thing about this that's a little frustrating for me and maybe for other people as well. This is a 1 hour conversation about something that we could talk about a whole semester. And so we're hitting the highlights and sometimes we're hitting the lowlights, but let's honor what a big topic this is and recognize that it could be an ongoing conversation that could last way longer than the time that we've given it. And in CST, this will be conversations that do continue, which is, I think, one of the values of having a community like that that continues on a regular basis so that we have time to think and digest ideas and then come back to each other again. Susie, to you, please.
Thank you. There's so much subtle symbolism, and it is really fun to talk about it. And I liked what you said about the witch being like maybe the shadow side of the dark side of feminine energy. And so when children are told stories, like she kept being warned, it's like the witch would represent fear. And because there's some things that we're not ready to confront because we're under the protection of a parent. But she's at this place where she's having to go on her journey to rescue something, to rescue that feminine, that masculine inside her. And so she's confronting a fear. So the witch could be representing something that's the shadow inside of, like, that we've been fearful of. And when we do confront that, then it's like whatever age that we confront it, we're like, why was I always afraid of that? This is something, there was a gift behind it. And all those prisoners that were set free are the little parts of us that can finally be set free and incorporated back into us. And, we come back with that strength. And I wanted to share that I love that there was a snake in here. Yesterday, I found a snake skin in the yard, and I was so excited because, we're coming to the end of the year of the snake, and I have been letting go of so much. And that, like she was releasing these gifts, these protections, which were going to be transformed into something, but she had no idea. And so just seeing that snake skin and then having a snake a part of this story is so auspicious for me because the snake has such wonderful symbolism also. And so thank you for sharing this, Jane, and I've just enjoyed what everybody's been saying about it too.
Good. Thank you, Susie. Thanks for your comments. Allison, please.
It's more of just an observation, sort of talking about the idea of the witch and also the negative or shadow side of things for me, because like in dreams, you tend to find out that these are all elements of ourselves. They're not external, they're internal. So for me, the witch will always represent something that if it is the shadow, it's the discomfort that we need to question. Why is it there and what do I need to give it? What does it need from me in order to be helped or encouraged into a more mature place? And it's always interesting to remember that you only have shadows when you have light.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Linda Dawson, it's good to see you. Please.
Thank you. I was wondering about some of the symbolism, and in my mind's eye, I see the gold belt as the tie that ties the shadow side and the light side of the witch to herself. And the good witch had to destroy herself in order to destroy the bad witch, so that the kingdom could be safe and peaceful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Isn't this fascinating, all the different takes on all these parts? I just think it's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that. Tamara, please.
Oh, hi. Um, Yeah, I was trying to get a picture up on here, but I'll figure out how to put it on here for people. Back to when we were talking about Joseph Campbell and his time period in that. I just a week or so ago, I was thinking about that when we were talking about the whole thing about goddesses and the feminine divine. And so I was looking up what, I had read some of the Joseph Campbell things. And when they did that series with Bill Moyers years ago, anyway, I was looking it up, and his whole, what would you say, the people that still run everything he has. There is a book out, and I got it. Actually, at first, I got the audiobook, and then I got the book. It's Joseph Campbell. It's just called Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine, and it's all the speeches and all the writing he ever did on it, but not that he ever actually put into a book and put out back then, because he was, of course, dealing with the men and the hero. But when I listened to the audio, it was so interesting, so exciting, but so many names, facts, figures that was like, wait a minute. I have to get the book so like I can, see this being visual. I have to see this, and somehow I might want to, underline a copy. So I did, and I'm, going through it. It is just so interesting to see how at the very, way back, the female and what the female represented in the goddess and that, and then how slowly we lost that and it became male oriented. And so it's just, I highly recommend it. Anybody that's interested in reading more about it. And I've not done a lot of reading about goddesses or anything like that, but I knew Joseph Campbell was a name and had read some of that. But this book is so interesting, but I'm finding myself wanting to highlight every word in the thing because it's so interesting. But so I would highly recommend it. I can write what it is in the chat. I was trying to screenshot and put the picture there, but I'm not being able to do that without screwing everything up. But anyway, anybody that wants to read what he wrote and said and gave speeches about on goddesses, I think you'd find it very enlightening. I certainly did. So that's all I wanted to tell you.
Well, you've actually given me an idea for a short reading list, because that another way to approach all of this would be to read Dr. Sharon Blackie.
Sharon Blackie?
Sharon. Sharon.
Okay.
And a book that she wrote is called Haggitude.
Okay.
And another one that I just got, and I'm only just halfway through it, When Women Rose Rooted.
When Women Rose Rooted. Okay.
So I think, all of this stuff is live. At least that's how I see it. And that means it's all evolving. But it also means that sometimes we have to reclaim what's been lost and feel really fierce about reclaiming it and defending it. And sometimes the way we think, for example, the whole witch discussion, which wasn't negative in the beginning, but it was gradually turned into a persona or an archetype that it's an archetype, and it's one where the shadow side took over, as is true with lots of archetypes, because of the culture that we live in the patriarchy. And we want to get that all back in balance.
Right.
And so that's part of why we wanted to offer this series, so that it would stimulate some thinking and some conversation in the effort that we're all making to become as whole as we can be, so that we can do the best that we can do in the situations that we're in.
Right. Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that, Tam. I wasn't familiar with that book.
Yeah, I wasn't. And one quick thing, I think what got me to that book was, I think I was listening to a podcast. I'm not sure where, what it was, and I can't think of the woman's name, but she has a book out, and her whole book is the whole thing about Mary Magdalene. And I think probably a lot of people that maybe grew up in Christian church probably by now realize that, the whole story about her altered her book that was, her book that was not included in the Bible. And the fact that she somehow became a prostitute when if you look back through and research, you're seeing no, she wasn't a prostitute. The church kind of,
Yeah.
the men had to do something to get rid of the goddess, the women. I think I saw something with her, and I think that's what led me to that. But that was interesting too. So
Yeah.
one thing leads to another. But
Mhm.
thank you. I'll
Yeah,
leave it at that.
it is all related. So I
Yeah.
appreciate those references as well. Thank you, Tamara.
Mhm.
Linda, please.
Yes. Oh, first of all, thank you for doing that book. My gosh, that's fantastic. And the illustrations are just, I wanted to say, stop, stop. I need to look at this and look at that. Yeah. But first, one thing about Sharon Blackie, I think it's her latest book. It's called something about the stories of wise women or wise women's stories. It's in the other room. I don't have it at hand, but it's a collection of Celtic tales about older women and what they have to offer in these
Okay.
stories. And then her commentary. I'll get the title of it and post it somewhere where we
Yeah.
can find it because it's fantastic. It's just fantastic, all these stories. So anyway, two things. Number one, that story I took it incredibly personal, that, it was definitely made for me. So coming off of a really, really difficult year, health-wise and stuff, and now I'm coming out in the opening, it made me think of Sujin going out saying, yes, okay, I'm going out. And she had her map. Her father gave her the map. And I've been developing in my journal a sort of map, which I know is very loose because plans change and stuff happens. And here it was when she got to that point, the way to go forward was to tear up the map and throw it to the air. And I just thought, yeah, that is just absolutely for me right now. You can write this map down, put these thoughts, but just know that at some point, it's not just maybe, but I think it's yes, you have to tear up the map and toss it to the air. The other one that struck me was looking at the images, because I was so taken with the images, is how political they were and how they specifically responded to a lot of what's going on today. And even when the prince said, I can no longer remain quiet, I have to leave my father's place. I don't know, there was just a whole bunch that seemed to me in there. And I thought it was so intriguing that this was written in 1990. And it made me think, I heard a lecture by James Hillman back up in about 1990. And one of the things he talked about, of course, was the shadow. And he said it's like the rhizome and it goes underground. And he said, and you think you've stamped it out and it's gone. But he said, don't worry, it'll just come up someplace else and bite you in the ass. But there it is.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't draw it out and turn it into a friend, it's going to get us.
Yep.
It's going to whack us.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched that happen with my own father in his decline, unfortunately.
Yes, I saw it with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Linda. Thanks for those comments. Fran, please.
Thank you. This is so fascinating. I just want to kind of repeat and raise up what you said about the witch and that our negative view of the witch. I was a witch. I was a practicing witch for about 20 years. And so I've kind of been inside that. And what I do with that, because I mean, I still, put up Halloween witches and that kind of thing. So I think we all kind of still carry that patriarchal view. But what it comes from is the patriarchy's fear of the feminine divine and fear of of feminine power, because it's a very, the witch is a healer. The witch has access to magic and has access to feminine power, basically. So I find that a really important thing for me just to remember that witches are healers and magic workers and in a good way. But also, I guess I end up with a question about the gold belt. I'm not sure I want to take that apart more, and I don't know the answer of what that gold belt represented, because in a sense, Sushin freed the witch by taking the gold belt off her. It seems to have freed the witch as well as freeing all the prisoners. And I'm wondering if you have thoughts about the symbolism of the gold belt.
Well, I hadn't really focused on that until now. But as you were just talking, Fran, it occurred to me that the witch was trying to ensnare Suchin in the gold belt and make Suchin afraid and make her a captive. And Suchin, it said right in the story, Suchin fought it with all the energy that she had, so that it turned back and wrapped around the witch. And so in some way that feels like the struggle between good and evil, or light and shadow. What do you think about that?
So are you saying that the gold belt was actually binding the witch rather than freeing the witch? I saw
Oh
it as free,
no,
but I
no,
don't
no,
know.
no. I think that you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about it that way. It was the the shadow side of whatever we think of as a witch, the fear. Let's call it the fear. I liked the idea of that quite a bit. The witch was trying to put that fear into Suchin and diminish her and bring her to this side. And instead, Suchin was powerful enough because of the gifts she had been given and because of the early parts of the story, she was able to turn that around. And at first, it looks as though she's ruining the witch, but in fact, she's saving the witch. And so, the way I choose to see that right now, I'm getting goosebumps, so maybe I'm
Me
right.
too.
is is the ability for good to prevail over evil, or for strength and a sense of personal ability to prevail. That's my word for the year, prevail. The ability of the good side of our natures to prevail over the shadow side or the fear.
And if the negative view of the witch is kind of the oppression of women by the patriarchy, then it's the ability for the light side of female energy to prevail over the lie, over the lie that's been forced on us.
Yeah, in an effort to bring the kingdom back into wholeness, or the queendom.
Thank you.
Oh, Jane just put in the chat. It's flashing across the bottom. Oh, Jane, I don't remember what you wrote. Undoing the lie. Undoing the lie.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Allison, please.
Just again, an observation. I saw the gold rope more as the end of the alchemical journey, which of course is transmuting something that is negative or something that is not lead, something that is not whole, to something, and gold is the end of it. And of course, in Buddhism, we all have our Buddha nature, and our Buddha nature is gold, and we're born with it. It's inherent. So it connects you back into that idea of wholeness, and that we carry it already, but sometimes we misplace it, and that's when the shadow can be more powerful.
Yeah. Well, I'm in with that. And that feels like a beautiful way for us to close this session. So thank you, Allison. Thanks for all of the very thought-provoking and helpful and wonderful comments that you all have made. I really, it's so much richer. I hope it is for you. It is for me when it is a conversation that we have. And sometimes, I interviewed Cass Holmes, the amazing embroiderer, mixed media artist from the UK. And she said that because she's going to be my first guest creatrix for March when CST begins again officially in full force. And she said, I feel I've done a good job with my online Zoom classes when we all forget that we're on Zoom, at least for a few minutes. and we're just looking at each other with compassion and interest, even though we're separated by many, many miles and all kinds of circumstances. So thank you so much for being here today. And I hope you'll join me next Thursday for our final session of the series, when we'll be taking all of what we've talked about so far and alchemically, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, is what that means, have a conversation about the power of community and how to cultivate community, since it is the fourth cornerstone in my little model of the cornerstones of creativity. So I hope I'll see you there. Thank you so much for being here today. Please stay safe
Thank you.
and be well.
You also, Jane.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.